The land of the Navajo Nation covers large areas of New Mexico, Arizona, and Utah. Throughout this vast land, Navajo Indians for over a century have created works of art in silversmithing and rug weaving. These art objects have been the mainstay of the Navajo economy. Cherished by Indian and non-Indian alike, Navajo jewelry and rugs are seen worldwide. The trade route for these products usually started at the local trading post. Walter Kennedy spent nearly his entire life trading with the Navajo Indians, and for over 35 years operated the trading post at Dannahutso in northern Arizona. After his recent retirement, Walter started sorting out his collection of over 50 years. It didn't take him long to realize that he needed help. Help came in the form of William Abel, noted southwestern Indian archaeologist. Walter and Bill have now completed cataloging and appraising the collection. The collection consists of 915 items, 220 bracelets, 11 bow guards, 44 pins, 8 buckles, 6 earrings, 38 rings, 168 beads and necklaces, 134 baskets, 54 rugs, 15 framed rugs, 50 concho belts, 99 Kachinas and carved dolls, 65 artifacts, saddles, and miscellaneous items. This collection, the largest singly owned, is now for sale.
These Kachinas are part of the Dannahutso collection you are about to see, which represents 53 years of deep interest in the Navajo people and their changing traditions. The jewelry and personal belongings, as well as ceremonial articles, cover the lives of 5 generations of Navajo families living in the Dannahutso area of northeastern Arizona. Walter M. Kennedy began his trading career at Lukachuka, Arizona in 1933, when at the age of 16 he worked for his brother Earl at Lukachuka Trading Post. This was the beginning of his desire to collect and preserve the items the Navajo held in high esteem. In an isolated Navajo community, the role of the trader is extremely important in the daily lives of the Navajo people. The trading post is the center of activity. It serves as the mercantile hub, the grocery, dry goods, hardware, feed, lumber, auto parts, service station, department store, and post office of the community. The trading post is the brokerage house for all Navajo products. On every day of business, the trader must be in a financial position to purchase a myriad of Navajo-produced items and livestock. He must always buy their sheep, goats, cattle, horses, wool, mohair, hides, rugs, baskets, and crafts, and the seasonal wool clip, fall lambs, and tons of piñons should there be a good crop. The trader serves the community at the pleasure of the federal, tribal, and chapter house governments. Should his business operations, ethics, prices, or personal habits come into conflict with those of the community, he may be removed and his lease canceled by one or any combination of the 3 mentioned bodies. He is also the local bank, financial advisor, pawnbroker, mechanic, veterinarian, marriage counselor, and occasionally an undertaker. It took many years to assimilate the material in this collection and the wide diversity of items it contains, and one must realize that many of these items could not have obtained without a very intimate closeness with the Navajo people. The Navajo were the first silversmiths among all the Indian tribes of North America. The first Navajo silversmith was Attire, who lived in the Crystal, New Mexico area. He made bridles and bits and stirrups which he traded to the Utes and Paiutes and his fellow Navajos. The Navajo have always favored the use of heavy silver and large turquoise stones. The Zuni style was the opposite, utilizing light silver and as little silver as possible. Their use of turquoise was small, identical cut stones set into patterns, hence the style cluster jewelry. In every major ruin site of the prehistoric Indian people, turquoise in some form or another has been discovered. Beads, mosaics, earrings, earplugs, pendants, ceremonial objects, and crushed and ground turquoise have been found in quantity. To the present time, there has never been a turquoise deposit discovered that has not shown some evidence of prehistoric Indian mining of some sort. In the mythology and legends of the southwestern Indian people, turquoise has a major role in the weaving of their stories passed orally from generation to generation. It is worn on the costumes of dancers, imitating the deities of their religions. It is used in all healing ceremonies, and it is put at sacred places to appeal to or supplicate their gods. Turquoise is worn with pride and social prestige by Indian and non-Indian alike. Last but not least, to Indian people, it is a veritable walking bank account because it can be used as collateral should the need arise to raise quick capital.
This is some of the old first square cut turquoise and keystone cuts and a little tiny stamped bead type thing. Turquoise, of course, was primarily mined by white men who owned the mines in Nevada, and then in turn it was cut and polished, and then in turn it was sold to traders and dealers, and in turn sold to the Navajo. A very, very old Navajo bracelet, and turquoise is very scarce in a lot of different areas on the Navajo reservation. So oftentimes they would take a piece of turquoise from maybe an earring that had been previously drilled. You can see the little tiny drill hole here. A pendant, this had been drilled 2 or 3 different times, and this had been drilled, a little drill hole here, and then they would inculcate it in a new piece of jewelry.
Around 1870, a Navajo silversmith named Yeibichei, the ugly silversmith, taught the Zuni people the art of silversmithing. The first turquoise stone set on silver was done at Zuni Pueblo by Yeibichei. This style of bracelet was admired and worn by Navajo men and women. Much trading was conducted between the two tribes for these beautiful cluster bracelets.
This is a Zuni cluster pin, very highly prized by the Navajo women. And some of these pins could be huge, and some were in matched pairs. The round turquoise cuts here are circular, almost like what they colloquially call snake eye cuts. And I would say that there's probably more Zuni type jewelry of the bracelet type among the Navajo than any other one type of outside jewelry.
Bright red and orange coral trade beads were made in Venice, Italy. They were shipped all over the world in the 15th and 16th centuries. The Spanish brought them into the Southwest during the colonization of New Mexico. The Navajo were attracted to these bright-colored strings of coral. Beginning around 1920, there was a great deal of Italian coral reaching the Navajo reservation. The Navajo adapted it to their own liking by adding silver tube beads every few inches and suspending their turquoise jackcloth from the bottom of the necklaces. Even the imitation glass beads were prized by the Navajo. Coral was much more rare than turquoise, and the Navajo went to great lengths to acquire it. High-quality coral in the past as well as today is more expensive than turquoise. Very little old coral beads still exist on the reservation, and they are sought after by collectors. The early Spanish settlers had horse trappings made of silver in the shape of concha shells. In the 1850s, a Navajo raiding party ran off 4,000 head of sheep near the present town of Socorro, New Mexico. In the armed skirmish that followed the raid, a Zuni scout employed by the army shot and killed one of the raiders. He was wearing a crudely shaped belt made of silver and resembling the Spanish conchas. This is the first historical mention of a Navajo concho belt. There are literally hundreds of different designs used by Navajo silversmiths. There is no limit to the individual use of creative design in the making of a fine Navajo concho belt.
This is one of my very favorite things in the collection, and these are the very old Navajo concho belts. A large percentage of these concho belts are made out of old coin silver, both U.S. coin and the old Mexican silver peso coins. And the old Navajo concho belts in the style It was called repoissé, or bumped out from the back, which gave it a rounded effect. And then all of the hand stamping and the matting and then the scalloping is done with other stamping tools. And then finally a bezel is set on the concho itself, and then a stone is attached. These are called butterflies, or spacers in between the two in the shape of a butterfly, also stone set.
The use of coined silver as decoration on personal articles dates back to the turn of the century. It reached its apex of popularity in the 1930s and 1940s and was seldom practiced by the 1960s. A small copper ring was soldered on the back of a coin, and this was sewn onto the blouse in decorative patterns. Many old trading posts had baskets full of this type of coin button. When a woman was $1 short on a purchase, she merely cut off 4 quarters or 10 dimes from her blouse and finalized the purchase. She might later buy them back from the trader at face value of the coin. If she had to have new ones made, she would furnish the coin to a silversmith, and he would charge her 10 cents to solder a copper ring on the coin. This part of cultural adornment has passed into history and is rarely seen today. This miniature loom is an exact replica of the larger standard loom used by Navajo weavers. The rug design, half completed, is a 2 gray heels, famous the world over for natural colored wool tapestries. The warp strings are strung vertically and tightly on the loom. The average good quality Navajo rug will have a single hand-spun wool warp of about 300 yards, the length of 3 football fields. The weft yarn is woven across the warp strings horizontally, and by changing the colors of wool, intricate designs are created. The simple weaving tools and the loom are unchanged from primitive times. The loom with the rug still on the frame can be dismantled and moved from camp to camp. The tools consist of a spindle on which the wool is spun, a weaver's comb which is used to pat the weft yarn into place, and battens which are turned sideways to open the warp strings, and then are turned up straight and brought down sharply to firmly pack the weft wool into a tight, firm line to give the rug a firm, tight, and straight-lined, pleasing effect.
This particular rug is a pictorial rug, as most of these rugs in the collection are. This is all done with commercial yarn, and the Denahotso weavers use commercial yarn because of the wide variety of color involved. It's nicely framed, and the weaver of this rug was a weaver, and her name was Vida Rose Joe, who also has done some other large rugs in this collection. The eagle is very well balanced. The weave is very tight and very well handled. You have the 2 eagles here chasing the cottontail rabbit, and the balance is very pleasing on it. Her use of color is very well balanced out. The vertical lines are straight. Overall, this is a very pleasing effect for a pictorial type rug.
Navajo-style bracelets are generally made of heavier silver and larger turquoise stones than the Zuni style. The Hopi use the overlay technique and seldom use turquoise stones. From the early bracelets till approximately the late 1960s, a Navajo bracelet could be identified by the bezel housing that holds the turquoise stone in place. The Navajo bezel was a straight, thin piece of silver surrounding the stone. The Zuni bezel was cut with a jeweler's saw and created a sawtooth effect which held small stones more securely. Most historical Navajo bracelets displayed a wide variety of turquoise, such as square cut, rectangle, round, oval, keystone, marquee, and pillow cut. The squash blossom necklace is a unique example of Navajo creativity and ability to adapt other cultures into their lifestyle and create something that is truly Navajo. The squash blossom is a culmination of many things observed by the Navajo over 300 years of occupation by the Spanish settlers and later the Mexican traders and ranchers. The pomegranate was native to Spain and brought to Mexico. The blossoms of this fruit were copied and made into silver ornaments, which were worn on the men's blouses and down the sides of the pants. The inverted horseshoe shape was a headstall ornament on their horse trappings and were also made of silver. After the Navajo learned to work silver, they combined the blossoms and naja to create a necklace interspersed with round silver beads, and it was a Navajo creation. Some enterprising traders around the turn of the century called them squash blossoms and spun tall tales about fertility and other romantic attributes, none of which had any truth or meaning to the Navajo. Navajo baskets are sometimes mistakenly called wedding baskets. A more proper term would be medicine or ceremonial baskets. Baskets are used in all Navajo healing ceremonies by the Navajo medicine men. They are kept by the healers as part of their fee. Ground blue cornmeal is placed in the basket, and a line of corn pollen is drawn from east to west and north to south, forming a cross. The Navajo word for corn pollen is tatadin. It is very sacred to the Navajo. It is used in all healing ceremonies. It is sprinkled on patients, ingested by mouth. It is used to bless people, buildings, objects, animals, and to ward off evil. Traditional Navajo people carry a small bag of pollen with a prayer stick for religious use. There are many variations of interior designs to Navajo baskets. Some old medicine men said wedding baskets had 5 rings. If that's so, less than 1% of all baskets could be used for weddings. From prehistoric times to present, turquoise beads have been worn by both men and women. To the Indian, there was no gender attached to the adornment of jewelry. Some of the turquoise in these beads are hundreds of years old, being passed down from generation to generation. Some are stoned ground, hand-drilled, smoothed with pumice, and hand-rubbed with buckskin to bring up the polish and sheen of the turquoise. The looped turquoise at the bottom of these necklaces is called jackcloth, the Navajo word for ear string. That is exactly what they were used for in times past. As the cultural changes came rapidly upon the Indian people, the jackcloth became a part of their necklaces. Turquoise beads are still worn daily by a great majority of the men and women, and most certainly at all social and religious events. At the turn of the century, a good jackcloth would buy 10 head of sheep or a good fat cow and calf. Turquoise beads were a standard trading item among the various tribes of southwestern India.
This is an old Navajo headstall. It's made out of sterling silver. At one time there was a piece of turquoise in the top of the headstall with a Yeibichei, inverted horseshoe shape, strung from the bottom. These they had acquired and made themselves, that they copied from the early Spanish headstalls and later the Mexican headstalls as they come into the Southwest. The bit itself is a hand-wrought bit, but it has German silver decoration along the side and a stamped design on it. These were highly prized by the Navajo people, and these were worn on their horses to almost all ceremonial functions.
This is a small lady's moccasin, and back when we were selling these, they sold for $5, and the present time it would be, they were worth quite a bunch of money. I never got a pair big enough for me to wear, but the Navajo people have small feet, and they use small sizes.
This is a very typical, necessary part of a Navajo man's attire from the turn of the century, and very popular up into almost into the late 60s. It was called a natani hat, the old high-brimmed hat with a Navajo handmade headband on it. Natani, a Navajo word meaning captain or head man.
Hustine's son asked me what I wanted the saddle for. He thought that I'd give him too much for the saddle. I told him that I was collecting and someday that everybody would be able to see this saddle. And I have kept my promise, I guess.
The Yeibichei dancers are Navajo men wearing masks and impersonating the Yei gods, supernatural beings in the Navajo religion. They dance in teams of 6 to 13 members. There are 5 versions of the Yeibichei chant. Only one medicine man was believed to know all 5 versions, Hosteen Claw of Newcomb, New Mexico, who was also the first to weave sand painting rugs. The Yeibichei take part in the Mountain Chant, a 9-day and 9-night ceremony. They appear on the last day of the chant and initiate the young people into adulthood during their ceremony. 3-day chants are also observed in many parts of the Navajo reservation. There may be 1 or more medicine men, a patient to be healed, and the Yei who perform the chant and dance ritual. The talking god with a large eagle tail headdress is the leader. The 2 feather Yei dancers follow. The last figure dressed in black costume wears a bull roar which swings in the air, making a roaring sound to keep evil away during the ceremony.
This is a Navajo bogard. The bogard, the Navajo word was gato. Originally, they were made to be worn on the inside of the wrist to keep the bowstring from striking back onto the raw flesh. Today, they're worn for ceremonial purposes and social events and so forth. It's reposse technique out of heavy sterling silver. This particular stone in this is chrysocolla, and the very, very fine detailed stamping all the way around. And most Navajo men who are attending traditional ceremonial events will still today wear a bogard as a social decoration rather than as the original intent of the protection from a bowstring. This is a very well done piece, probably circa 1920s, and it's very typical of that era of Navajo silversmithing. Style, as you can see, the much larger pieces of turquoise, larger blossoms, larger Yeibichei. These are nugget cuts. The turquoise has been cut, bare oak cut from rough nuggets and left in rough shape rather than been cabochon cuts, which are smoothed and polished. This is another set of Navajo beads, very well done. This has a very finely ground jaw cloth attached to the bottom of the beads. Jaw cloth is a Navajo word. Jaw meaning ear and cloth meaning string, jaw cloth. The turquoise is rather cut, it's baroque cut. It's the Royston turquoise mine from Royston, Nevada, and there are 2 sing beads attached, indicating that the owner had 2 major sings held in the Navajo ceremonies.
There's no old trading posts left, they're all gone. Because all they are out there is 7 to 11s. They're not trading posts, they're just a convenience store.
The changing lifestyles of the younger generation Navajo are rapidly replacing the goods and values of their parents and grandparents. These eroding factors have resulted in large-scale disposal of family jewelry and relics, revered and preserved by their elders. And last of all, there is still the Navajo reluctance to barter with people unfamiliar to them. Many of the collection items are irreplaceable, simply because there is nothing to replace them with.